my number three is a little known film called North by Northwest, 1959, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, starring Cary Grant, Eve Marie Saint, James Mason, Martin Landau. Quick summary for those who haven't seen this movie. A New York City advertising executive goes on the run after being mistaken for a government agent by a group of foreign spies and falls for a woman whose loyalties he begins to doubt. So I put this movie on my list. Speaking of sort of transitions, like two movies that are so polar opposite, I think they have nothing in common. But I put this movie on my list because really of my love of sort of mystery movies and whodunits. It's one of my great comfort genres, and we'll get into our massive list of things that are not on the list, and I can share a lot more there. But I kind of picked this up because I just felt, well, who is the master of this genre? And it is Hitchcock. And I think a lot of his movies have this aspect of sort of whodunit and mystery and such. But I think this one probably is on my rewatchable list the most because I think it's the most fun of them. It's one of those movies where the plot, and let me say this, I love mystery not so much for the plot anyway, and in this movie the plot doesn't even make sense. I've watched this movie so many times, I don't think I fully understand it, but it doesn't really matter. It is really the piece that's comforting to me in the mystery genre is the comfort of the process and the revelation of the clues as they come at you, and there's something very enjoyable about that. But then you see this, see all of that with beautiful people, Cary Grant, Eve Marie Saint, at the height of their powers, in, beautiful locations, set pieces, all the Hitchcockian sort of flares of, beautiful cinematography, probably one of my all-time favorite scores. All of that put together is sort of what makes this movie so fun, so delightful. And you sort of on a journey. Like I said, I still don't understand what really happens. Like, why are they on Mount Rushmore? That scene is sort of odd, weird, but who cares? It's just such a delight. And the fact that Cary Grant, of all people, is in a Mistaken Identity movie, who is so noticeable and so distinguished, that in itself is kind of a joke, but I guess that's the point and the genius of the movie and the genius of Hitchcock. Like, he's a master of casting his movies, even though he famously doesn't really care for actors and their process and all of that stuff. But I mean, there's not much that I can add to everything that's been said about this movie, over decades and decades. But I just love this one. And that's my number three, North by Northwest.
Yeah, I love this film as well. I mean, it's not only am I a fan of Hitchcock, but I do think, actually, I will say this is my favorite movie of his.
Oh, really?
For sure, yeah. And I could make a case for it being his best film, but we covered Vertigo like a couple episodes ago, and now I think academically, I feel that is actually a better film, potentially. But North by Northwest is just, it is we've talked about this a couple times in the podcast before, like a perfect movie in the sense of everybody is, all the craftsmen and artists came together doing all their best work, and all their best work adds together to a perfect film, which sometimes you don't always get. But yeah, this movie, again, what can you kind of say that hasn't already been said about how good this is? But it is, you mentioned, I think, at the outset, that one of the, the things that brings you comfort is that, like, watching perfection in front of you, which doesn't come through necessarily on my list. At least it's a very subjective perfection for me. But I think North by Northwest is objectively a perfect film. Perfect. And I do get an enjoyment out of watching that too. It's just like how, when you watch these sequences, it's how Hitchcock crafted this and really just set the blueprint for like an entire genre of like modern spy thrillers. So many different films you watch that you've seen, you see that in this film, and how he constructs it, how he uses the camera angles, how he uses landmarks. He used the Statue of Liberty once in Saboteur, but I mean, this film, it's like he's hitting you overhead with, here's the UN, here's at Mount Rushmore, and it's not just like a set piece, it's like the focus where you're like
Right.
it kind of up levels the scale of what's going on when you see this. It's fantastic. And then you also have all the, and every time I watch this film, it feels like a Bond movie to me. And I know it's been said, the Broccoli and Saltzman, who did the Bond films, are heavily inspired by this movie, and it definitely feels exactly like a early Sean Connery era Bond film.
Yeah, if not better. I mean, I
Oh
personally,
yeah, it's way better than
it's
those
way
films.
better.
Yeah. But they cribbed like the Bond girl who might be good, might be bad.
Mm-hmm.
You have the villain, but then you have the henchman in Martin Landau.
Mm-hmm.
It's just and again, all this big set pieces. Like he was very great, Hitchcock, at doing these large action set pieces, and which again, Bond films have that too. But
Totally.
just just a fantastic film. It was really fun to watch this again. I mean, it's one of those films too where if I stumble across it on TV, I mean, I guess I don't really watch TV anymore like that way. But in the old days, when I used to browse around, and if this movie was on a channel, it's like, oh, nice, okay, I'm watching North by Northwest. Like I have to watch
this. In fact, I should have mentioned, I think that's one of my other kind of barometers, if you will, for comfort movies, is that one use case is that you put it on with intention, that you want to seek it. The other one is that you accidentally catch it and you just have to watch either all of it, or you can sort of jump in at any point and watch a little bit of it, and it brings you instant joy, instant comfort. And I think all my movies are like that. This one is definitely like that. And we've talked about this, and again, this is no hot take. Like Hitchcock, it depends on how much you want to engage with him. Like you could watch these movies at a very surface level and get so much pleasure out of it. Or if you want to go deeper in the psychology of desire or all of his own personal demons that are all over the movies that he makes, the technical mastery, all of that, if you want to engage with that, you can go, 6 layers deeper. And depending on kind of, where I'm at in my mood and time frame or what have you, I sort of make a choice consciously or unconsciously to engage with it howsoever I want. And I think that's the other beauty of this movie and a lot of Hitchcock movies, is that it meets you where you're at. And I think that to me is also very comforting, and because comfort doesn't, at least for me, doesn't have to be dumb thrills. Sometimes I want that, but I do want to at least see the layers behind it so that I can engage with it if I want to. And let's just face it, I end up doing that every time I watch it. It's, that's the power of his movies and just sort of how my brain works too, I suppose.
Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.